Chapter 2 The Slaves. Begin all acts and thinking by using El-Kalum the All. Tablet 2 The Revolt. 19 times 8 equals 152. Lo, when the Anunnaki instead of the Enoshites did the work and bore the loads, the Anunnakai's load was too great for them. The work was too hard, the trouble was too much. The great Agigi made the Anunnaki carry the workload sevenfold, for it was they that maintained and manned the crafts for transport. Anu, their heavenly father, was ruler. Anu is the title. The name was El-Elo, as Allah. He is a sun god, and his twin and disagreeable sister was Alat, as the moon god. Their counselor warrior was Enlil Nanamnar, their chamberlain was Ninurta, and their canal controller was Anangi. They took the box of 13 lots, and cast lots. The Anunnaki made the division. Anu went up to the ship Nibiru, which was hovering in the sky above, and Enlil Nanamnar, the just ruler for his people, took the earth from his brother Enki Nadimad, and became God or Allah of the heaven and the earth, called the light Afsu the sun. The name Allah is from the cuneiform Elu, which is to become Eli or Elo. This Allah of Anu appointed another Allah, Enlil, who appointed another Allah, Tammuz, his great-grandson, being the son of his granddaughter Ishtar and Dumuzi, the youngest son of Enki. Tammuz became known as Yahweh and Allah, the light of the heaven and earth, the first or one God over the earth, and those Enoshites on it. He who has a perfect nature, to be God of the Enoshites, knowing good from evil. The sea was assigned to far-sighted Enki Nadimad. He was given the ability to see long distance at a glance. When Anu had gone up to the ship Nibiru in the sky, and the Anunnaki of Argata, the inner world, had gone below, above became heaven, and below became hell to the Anunnaki and their clones. The Agigi of the sky made the Anunnaki bear the workload. The Anunnaki had to dig out the canals, they had to clear the channels, using the crafts to bore tunnels into the inner world. The Anunnaki dug out the Tigris River, and then dug out the Euphrates, for there was much gold to be mined in the deep. And the land called Eridu, that they set up after coming from the domain Argata, the inner world, to mine the gold of the land, and to dwell inside it. Ubaid, the temple of respect, was first raised on its top, so that its illustriousness could stand out and be seen of all the mountains. They were counting the shars of loads of gold that was being transported from the great marsh. They were counting the shars of loads for 3,600 years, their original orbit to one shar. They bore the excess hard work, shadow hours and daylight. They groaned and blamed each other, grumbled over the masses of evacuated soil. Let us confront Ninurta, our chamberlain, and get him to relieve us of our hard work. Come, let us carry Enlil Nanamnar, the counselor of the Anunnaki, the warrior, from his dwelling. Then Kau made his voice heard, and spoke to the Anunnaki and Anakites, his brothers. Come, let us carry Nanamnar, counselor of the Anunnaki, the warrior, from his dwelling. Now, cry battle, let us mix fight with battle. The Anunnaki listened to his speech and set fire to their tools, put aside their spades for fire and their loads for shamash. They flared up. When they reached the gate of the warrior Nanamnar's dwelling, it was shadow hour, the middle watch. The house was surrounded. The Anunnaki had not realized it was shadow hour. The middle watch, Eka, the temple in which the house of Nanamnar, known on Ki as Enlil, was surrounded, and he had not realized it. Yet Kau was attentive, and he had it closed. He held the lock and watched the gate. Kau roused Nusku. They listened to the noise of the Anunnaki. Then Nusku roused his master and summoned him to get out of bed. My Sultan, master, your house is surrounded. A rebel is running around your door. Nanamnar had weapons brought to his dwelling. Nanamnar made his voice heard and spoke to the chief Nusku, who bore the title Gabriel, saying, Nusku, bar your door and take up weapons and stand in front of me. Nusku barred his door, took up his weapons and stood in front of Nanamnar. Nusku made his voice heard and spoke to the warrior Nanamnar. O Nanamnar, my ruler, your face is frowning like you have tasted the date root of the tamarisk. Why do you fear your own sons? Send for Anu to be brought down to you, and have Nudimud fetched into your presence. Enlil sent for Anu to be brought down to him. Enki was fetched into his presence. Anu, the ruler of the sky, was present. Enki, sentenced in Agatar, the inner world, attended. The great Anunnaki were present. Nanamnar got up, and the case was. Nanamnar made his voice heard, and spoke to the great Anunnaki. Is it against me that they have risen? Shall I do battle with them all? What did I see with my own eyes? A rebel was running around my door. Anu made his voice heard, and spoke to the warrior Nanamnar. Let Nusku go out, and hear the words of the Anunnaki who have surrounded your door. A command was sent to the just Nanamnar, who made his voice heard, and spoke to the chief Nusku. Nusku, open your door, take up your weapons and stand before me, in the assembly of all the Anunnaki. Bow, then stand and tell them your father Anu El-Elo, your counselor Nanamnar, your chamberlain Ninurta, and he who is your water canal controller Anungi, have sent me to say, who is in charge of the rebellion? Who is in charge of the fighting? Who declared war? Who ran to the door of Nanamnar? Nusku opened his door, took up his weapons, went before Nanamnar in the assembly of all the Anunnaki. He bowed, then stood in Taful, and told the message. Nadimad said, every single one of us Anunnaki declare war. We have put a stop to the digging. The load is excessive. It is killing us. Our work is too hard. The trouble is too much. So every single one of us Anunnaki have agreed to complain to Nanamnar. Nusku took his weapons, went and returned to Nanamnar. Nanamnar listened to that speech. His tears flowed. Nadimad spoke guardedly. He addressed the warrior Enlil. O Naya, noble one, take a decree with you to the sky. Show your strength while the Anunnaki are sitting before you. Call up one Anunnaki and let them cast him for destruction. El-Elo as Anu made his voice heard and spoke to the Anunnaki his brothers. What are we complaining of? This is for the youth. I will take my leave and return to Nibiru. The decision I leave in your hands, but make it right. When his craft had departed, the Allahum began to reassert their personal feelings concerning the works. It was said that their work was indeed too hard, their trouble was too much. Every day the earth resounded. All those on earth called out. The warning signal was loud enough, and we kept hearing the noise of the cries. While the Anunnaki are sitting before you, and while Belatili, also known as Ninhursag, Ninamnar and Ninti, the womb deity, is present, she gave the Adamite the gift of procreation. Call up one and cast him for destruction. Enki made his voice heard and spoke to the Allahum, his brothers, in the absence of Anu. Why are we blaming them? Their work is too hard, their trouble too much. Belatili, Ninti, the mistress of the sky, is present. Let her create a mortal Adamite, so that he may bear the yoke, the work of Nadimad. Let the Enoshites bear the load of the Anunnaki. Belatili, Ninti, the mistress of the sky. Let us create offspring of the Adamites, and let the Enoshites bear the load of the Anunnaki. Ninti made her voice heard, and spoke to the great Anunnaki. It is not proper for me to make Adamu, or Adaris, or Adaru. The Chaldeans call this man Adam, whom the earth produced. He lays without movement, without life, and without breath, just like an image of an Adam that was created in Malakut, until his soul had been given to the physical Adam. According to Jewish tradition, in the Targumim and the Talmud, as also to Moses' Maimonides, Adam was created man and woman at the same time, a hermaphrodite. The work is Nadimad's. He makes everything pure. If he gives me clay and test tubes of genes, then I will do it. I will start the cloning. Nadimad made his voice heard and spoke to the great Anunnaki. On the 1st, 7th and 15th of the month, I shall make a purification by washing. Then one Anunnaki named Geshtu should be slaughtered for a willing sacrifice, who was willing to give his life for the life of other men, that they may be saved, and let the egg of an ape woman, a Homo erectus, be mixed with the Anunnaki. Let them be purified by immersion to become a single person. Ninti shall mix the teat, that which is with life, clay, and his shiru, to bind that which binds flesh, and his blood, and to obtain the tima, that which makes a person what he is and different from anyone else, personality from the blood. Today it is called genes, an extract from the shiru, and a kishru, semen, simply sea man, or men of the sea, as a tadpole coming from a non-Anunnaki's male member. This was clone 1 of 16. Then the Anunnaki and an Adamite will be mixed together in clay. This Anunnaki is Mother Ninti, and this Adamite of the Adama project named Adaru. Now he is Homo sapien. He was once Homo erectus. Thus, they are ready for making and the creating of Cadmon. Let us hear the drumbeat forever after. Let an Ephraim-like wind, Ruach, come into existence from the Anunnaki's flesh. Let her proclaim it as his living sign, and let the Ephrains who are Ruach exist, so as not to forget the slain Anunnaki Geshtu. They answered yes in the assembly. The great Anunnaki who assigned the fates, the 24 elders. Ninmah, also known as Ninti, says to Enki, "On the form of man, good or bad, I will decree the fate that is good or bad, as I feel like it, the gift of will." Enki answers Nimnah, "The fate that comes to you, whether it is good or bad, I will counter." Ninmah took the clay that covers the Apsu, the first one that made it into a man, who when reaching could not bend his rigid hands, which resulted in the disease called arthritis, where brittle bones come from. Enki, seeing the first man, who when reaching could not bend his rigid hands, decreed fate for him, named him a servant of the king. The second one she made into a man could see, though blind. Enki, seeing this man, decreed his fate, and gave him the art of song, named him chief of the Usamgal lyre, dragon lyre before the king. This defect produced stigmatism in the human today. The third she made into a man with paralyzed feet. This defect produced paralysis. Enki, seeing the man with paralyzed feet, gave him his malum, terrifying glance, radiance like a silver bowl. The fourth she made into a man who kept dripping semen. This defect produced the disease spermatoria. Enki, seeing the man who kept dripping semen, bathed him with incantation water of the holy Suma. The fifth she made into a woman who could not give birth. This defect produced sterility. Enki, seeing the woman who could not give birth, decreed a fate for her, and he built her a harem. This was the beginning of adoptions. The sixth she made into something without a phallus or a vulva on its body. This defect produced a caudal regression. Enki, seeing something without a phallus or vulva on his body, to serve the one Enlil how called by name over the great earth, the ruler decreed his fate. Thus the beginning of eunuchs used as servants. Enki threw the brazier, intense burner, to the ground for no reason, for he was having a tantrum. He acted most deceitfully. Enki says to Ninmah, "For everyone you have formed I have decreed their fate, and have given them bread. Now I will make some for you, and you decree the fate of the newborn." Enki made a form with a head, eyes, mouth, ears, and in its center a nose. He says to Ninmah, "The phallus made semen pour into the woman's womb. It had made that woman give birth in her womb, the beginning of artificial insemination. Ninmah, in anticipation, stood by at its birth. That woman brought forth a head with a mouth in its center of it. The second one he had made into an Umal. With its head sick, it was hydrocephalic. Its brain was deteriorating, which resulted in the disease called aneurysm, and its old body was sick in its place, which produced the disease called degeneration. Sick was its eyes, sick was its neck, breath at an end, ribs shaky, lungs sick, heart sick, bowels sick. The hand that supported from his head could not put bread in its mouth. It splintered and caused a suffering spine in pain. Shoulders drooping, feet shaky. It could not walk forward to work the field. Enki says to Ninmah, "For every one you formed I declared its fate. I have given it bread. Now you declare the fate of the one I have formed. Give him bread." Ninmah, when she saw Umal turn to him, she approaches Umal, questions him but he cannot speak. She brought him bread to eat, he cannot reach it, he cannot use his hand. Having stood up, he cannot sit down, he cannot lie down, he cannot build a house, and he cannot eat bread. Enki says to Ninmah, "For the man with the rigid hand, I decreed his fate and gave him bread. For the man who was blind, I decreed his fate and gave him bread. For the man with paralyzed feet, I decreed his fate and gave him bread. For the man who kept dripping semen, I decreed his fate and gave him bread. For the woman who could not give birth, I decreed her fate and gave her bread. For the one without a phallus or a vulva, I decreed the fate and gave him bread. My sister, now you decree the fate of Umal, give him bread." Ninmah denigrates or attacks verbally Enki as one who has paid no heed to what happens in the land, and accuses him of not coming to her aid, and even of betraying her when at the command of Enlil her city was attacked, her temple destroyed, her son carried off into captivity, so she fled Enlil's Eka mountaintop and became a refugee. You see, you did not dwell in heaven, you did not dwell on earth, you did not bring your lifted face to the land, your word was not heard in the house built for me, you did not live on earth, you betrayed me in the city built for me. My city attacked, my house destroyed, my son taken captive. Here I am a refugee, one who fled the Eka. Now I have not freed myself from your hand. Enki answers Ninmah, a word comes out of your mouth agreeable, who can alter it? Umal, the crippled old creature of creation, take him off your lap. All has surely looked with favour upon your work. He has given you an imperfect hand. Who can oppose him? Take my hand, for worthless is its use. Take back this hand. Put your hand on its mouth. Now may my phallus be acclaimed. May it become a wisdom in Dowra. May the Enkum, your rulers, the Ninkum, noble ladies, exalt you forever. O my sister, do you extol my heroic strength? Do you utter songs for me? The deities who hear them will rejoice. The Umal, let him build my house. O Father Enki, sweet is your praise. On the 1st, 7th and 15th of the month, he made a purification by washing. Geshtu the Anunnaki, who had intelligence, they slaughtered in their assembly. He was a willing sacrifice. Ninti first washed their hands, then mixed his shiru, flesh and blood. They heard the drumbeat forever after. A Ruach soul came into existence from the Anunnaki's flesh, and she, Ninti, proclaimed it as his living sign. The Ruach existed so as not to forget Geshtu. After she had mixed that clay, she called up the Anunnaki, the great Allahum. The Agigi, the great Allahum, spat spittle onto the clay. Mami, who was also called Ninti and Ninhursag, made her voice heard and spoke to the great Anunnaki. I have carried out perfectly the work that you ordered of me. You have slaughtered an Anunnaki together with his intelligence. I have relieved you of your hard work. I have imposed your load on Humim. You have bestowed noise on Humims. I have undone the fetter and granted freedom. They listened to this speech of hers and were freed from anxiety and kissed her feet. We used to call you Mami, but now your name shall be Mistress of all Anunnaki, the giver of Nefesh, spirit.